Coming up on this episode of Together for Good, I'm talking with Scott Zimmerman and Stacie Schubert, the happily married couple. They've been involved in Bethany for a long time. They've been involved in church for almost their whole lives, but I need to find out why. Here we go. Welcome to the Together for Good podcast, a podcast created by Bethany Lutheran Church in Cherry Hills Village, Colorado, and hosted by me, Pastor Nate Preisinger. On Together for Good, our goal is to provide practical, engaging content that supports you without expectations. Whether you're feeling disconnected from traditional religion or simply exploring what faith means in your life, we're here to walk alongside you. No matter where you are on your journey of faith, we're glad you're here. Welcome to Together for Good. All right, Scott and Stacie.
Hi.
It's
Hello.
so good to see you in the podcast studio.
Thanks for having us.
You're so welcome. Thanks for coming. Scott and Stacie, you have been married now for how long? I did your wedding with Pastor Gary. That was 4 years ago now?
Yes, 4 years ago this past June.
4 years ago this past June. But you've both been at Bethany for much longer than that.
Mm-hmm.
And you both have been involved in church for even longer than that. We don't have to go into exact dates and times. I know you told me not to do that. But I just, both of you, I think, have really interesting stories. And I know that you're also just very good storytellers. And so I wanted to bring you on the podcast to kind of hear what you have to say. And so let's just start off. Tell us, tell the listeners just a little bit about yourself, but then also if you're thinking maybe some of your connection to church. Scott, we can start with you since you're at the far end of the couch. How did you end up at Bethany? What are you doing now? But yeah, give us just a general sense of who you are and how you ended up here.
Yeah, I'm a cradle Lutheran and grew up going to church with parents and stuff like that.
In Western New York.
In Western New York.
Go
in
Bills.
Clarence Center at Zion Lutheran.
Crazy.
Which you are familiar with.
Yep.
And I think as an adult, I just felt drawn to continue. It's sort of like in college, it turned for me where I ran into a bunch of kids who were of a different brand of Christianity.
Oh.
And it felt uncomfortable to me. They would invite me to the dinner that they had on Sunday nights, and they would have these segregated Bible studies. And it's like, what is it about this that's different? So what is it that I believe? And so I went to decided to sort of figure out what, was Lutheranism something that I should keep?
Yeah.
And what is it that Lutherans believe? And so there was a church in Boulder that I started going to and joined the choir as I typically do. And there were some interesting Bible studies that I went to. And it's like, wow, it was such a different experience from growing up.
Yeah.
I felt like this is a place where I can explore my faith. And that's kind of where it started, I think.
But that's interesting is that this seems significant. It was important to you enough that you kind of stuck with it through high school-ish. But then when you go off to Boulder, you encounter a new group of people and you're like, wait a second, like we both call ourselves Christian, but what you're saying is really different than what I mean by that term. And so then you had to go and kind of find your own space that fit you and what you were looking for.
Yeah.
Stacie, did you have a similar experience?
No.
Because you went to a Lutheran college too. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Cradle Lutheran, born and bred, Messiah Lutheran, Ralston, Nebraska. Was actively involved in my youth group all through junior high, high school. I was involved in the state youth organization,
No
held
way.
elected positions.
Oh my gosh, should I genuflect? Like
right?
That? Yeah.
I preached early and often.
Wow.
Went to Augustana Lutheran College when I went there. It's now university, but was not necessarily actively involved in chapel or the faith community at Augustana, but I was studying religion and social work.
Okay.
But I was sleeping in on Sunday mornings, if we're real. Like, I'm just going to be real with you. I was sleeping in on Sundays after Saturday night. And then as an adult, I went on after college. I went to seminary, ordained Lutheran pastor, served a congregation. And I came to Denver and knew Wayne Weisenberg. So Wayne was the pastor here at the time. And I had met Wayne through mutual pastor friends in Wisconsin. So I came to Bethany, so that would be the year 2000, because I knew Wayne and I knew he was a preacher that I wouldn't critique. And
I've
I
heard he
know,
was a very good preacher.
well, and I know you know what that means as a
Yeah.
pastor. It's kind of like it's hard to go, right?
Hard to turn it off.
Hard to turn it
Yeah.
off. So I knew he was solid. And the story that most people at Bethany who've spent any time with me know is I worshiped here for 2 years and nobody talked to me.
Wow.
I was not welcomed. I was not greeted. But what people forget about that part of my story is that's what I wanted.
Right.
I slipped in, I sat in the back, I worshiped, fed my soul, and went to brunch with the girls.
Yeah.
I did not want to be involved. I did not want to raise my hand. I didn't want to be known. So it was okay
Yeah.
that nobody talked to me. But so I've been at Bethany since 2000. Wayne brought me here. But what kept me at Bethany was when we did the disciple Bible study that Pastor Ron, Pastor Ruth Ann, and Kristen Roenfeld introduced.
Neat.
And that's how I met people. And then
Yeah.
I did meet people and made friends and community and have been here ever since.
Ever since. So both of you have a story of this being something, right? Like going to church,
Mhm.
being involved in a church, whether it's singing in the choir or just showing up on Sundays and leaving during the closing hymn.
Yep.
Um,
But yes.
but what I'm curious about is what do you think it was within you that seemed so important as something that as a practice you wanted to continue? Like Scott, as you were leaving, right, this opportunity to go off to college, you grew up in Western New York and you went all the way out to Colorado. Were you living in Colorado? Was your family in Colorado at that point?
No.
Because I know they're here now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to get as far away from home as possible.
And so I
Yeah.
think a lot of people feel that. And
Mhm.
part of what that also means, it's not just a geographic as far away from home, it's also a philosophical as far away from home. And so it's like, oh, my family made me go to church growing up. And now I'm going, I'm leaving that behind and I'm not going to look back. But that wasn't your story. Do you have any like sense of why that was for you, that felt like a piece you needed to continue with?
I don't know. I was as I thought about our conversation today, I thought about, what it was like growing up. And I know I had a good friend in confirmation, and we would, skip out of church together in junior high and high school. And there was another hot chick that was in confirmation. So there's sort of a cohort that sort of kept us
Involved.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But it might be either a personality thing or the example of my mom. Like I remember her going without any fanfare to like Wednesday night services during Lent. And I would, in high school, I would go with her sometimes. And it was such a different experience. It was much more meditative, much more intimate. And that really appealed to me. And that was something that I think connected me to a worship service that wasn't just sort of singing and standing up and sitting down and saying some words.
Just that like quieter, more peaceful, thoughtful space.
Yeah.
There was something appealing about that.
Yeah.
And that's
yeah,
what gets like its
absolutely.
hooks in. And then you go looking for that at other times in other places.
Mhm.
That's fascinating. I mean, Stacie, what do you think for yourself? What kept you involved? Like you admitted that you were sleeping in on Sundays in college, just like everybody.
Just like most of us. Well, there was a crew. For me, and people know this, it was Bible camp. I went to Bible camp and I was a camp counselor at Green Lake Lutheran Bible Camp, where a lot of Bethany people
Yes.
were all,
Heard all about it.
all through college. I was a camp counselor. I found it's always been for me community. But I think the other piece is I've always known that and needed something bigger than myself, right?
Oh,
Like that
yeah.
idea that the world isn't just what I know, that it's got to be more than that. It's got to be bigger. Working at a Bible camp is one of the most amazing experiences. So every kid listening to this, give it a chance.
Yeah, seriously.
Make 2 cents an hour, work 23 hours a day. They will be my best friend in the world is a Bible camp person that we work together. But
Yeah.
there's something about watching the mountaintop experience and watching kids come to know Jesus, come to know their
Yeah.
faith, or learn stories, or suddenly it's not that weird
Mhm.
because it's cool at camp. But for me, I think that was one of those reoccurring things that kept me engaged, whether I was going to chapel at college or not. I spent my summers knee deep in Bible camp.
Yeah.
And then as an adult after school, college, it really is that moment to slow down
Yeah.
and to be fed. So for me, a big piece of why I continue to stay is that Bethany has really always had good preachers. Somebody who is willing to challenge a place, and Scott mentioned it too when we did disciple Bible study for those 5 years, a place to ask all the questions and
Yeah.
to push back at scripture, and all those things are okay at Bethany. And there's a community that lives it and breathes it, but also is willing and not worried about being challenged. So there's a lot of good things at Bethany that have kept me as an adult engaged.
You brought it up twice now, so let's dig into it. Tell me more about Disciple Bible Study. I know a decent amount about it. I'm sure a lot of our listeners don't know anything about it. So what was that? And it sounds like too, I wonder as well, if you didn't have that experience, if you would still be engaged.
Well, that's a really good question,
Yeah.
because my group, our group of very close friends.
Wait, Scott, were you in Disciple Bible Study too?
No,
No.
but I
Not that
knew
cool.
a few of them through other means, and then kind of joined the churchies.
Okay.
As they are known.
as they're known. But so Disciple, Kristen at the time introduced the idea that it's so there's 52 weeks in a year, right?
Correct.
So it was like a 48-week type study.
Mercy.
Yeah. And you either did Monday night or you did Thursday. Pastor Ron did Monday night, Pastor Ruth Ann did Thursday. Well, I wanted to get to know Pastor Ron. That was part of why I said yes to a 40-some week long thing, was I get a chance to get to know my pastor originally. But the group I joined on Monday night, we stayed together for 5 years. It's a whole book series, and it's not Lutheran. I don't remember if it was Methodist or Episcopal. It's another denomination.
Sure.
But it was different parts of the Bible. And the first year, we literally read the Bible beginning to end, not the whole thing, not consecutively, but it would be, this week was on Judges, and there was like verses from every. So, and it was you watched a funny video to begin with, and everybody who was in Disciples going to giggle because there was also liturgical dance in the video that we all made fun of. But it kind of set it up, right? It gives you a feel for what kind of, but then it was discussion, and it was but workbook had some in it, but of course, it grew into more than that. And Ron led the first one. Then we got interns for a couple of years, and then it became self-led. And there were about 28, 29 of us who did all 5 years. Every Monday night, came at 6, had
28
dinner.
of you?
There was like 28 of us
No way.
that stuck through it. And to this day, I will tell you, some of them,
Yeah.
Andrea Spronk, Mark Lacey, Brenda Greenwald, Sarah Holsland, some of them are my closest church friends.
Right.
And part of that is sitting in Bible study every week, the commitment.
Yeah.
But it's also the shared experiences, the conversation.
Yeah.
You'd listen to, the week Bill King would lead it. He'd come in and have rewritten some Bible story as a court case, right?
Yes.
And then Deb Mariano would come in, and you learn the story about hiking in Hawaii with a naked guy. Like, you also got to know each other. Oh yeah. You have to have everybody ask Deb for that story.
It's incredible.
You build really strong connections when you spend
Yeah.
3 to 4 hours every Monday night up in room whatever that room is.
210, yeah.
210, yeah. And we made it more community. We brought meals. So we had a meal together, and then we did Bible study.
Oh my gosh.
And we kept it going for seriously 5 years.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
It was wonderful. And it is why I think
absolutely.
but I think that's a really interesting question, because for me, that was how I finally tipped my toe in of, okay,
Yeah.
let's actually meet people, get to know their names, all of that. But in turn, ended up being some of mine and now our best friends at church.
Church.
And you go to church to see your friends, right?
I mean, I think that's a big piece of it, is that it's interesting. Your story is really interesting because it has this original piece of, I went to church because I needed something. And I want to dig into that in a second here. But I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to be pastor up front anymore. I want to be person in the back pew. and then leave and be anonymous. I think there's a lot of people at Bethany too who would fit in that vein, who maybe have very public lives elsewhere, but this is a large enough space where they can just kind of come and be a person and worship and hear a sermon and go home.
It's a corporate size congregation.
Yeah.
And I used to say that all the time to people, that's the gift and it's the blessing and the curse.
Absolutely.
Because it is really easy to just not raise your hand and not blend it, and just do it. So it's a blessing and a curse.
But so it was finally a Bible study that got you kind of connected and with community. Scott, I know for you, you've talked to me about this before, that choir and music has kind of been that place. And just tell us a little bit about that, because you have an interesting perspective when it comes to this.
Well, for me, when I was in the Navy, I'd moved to a new place, go, with wherever my command was, and join the local church. I'd search out whatever the Lutheran church was there. I'd join it and join the choir. And that was sort of my civilian connection. That was the only civilian thing I really did.
Yeah.
In Norfolk, Virginia, in Newport, Rhode Island, in Jacksonville Beach, Florida. Because the rest of the time I was either on the ship or, underway somewhere. And so that became my community in a sense. That was the only place I could go where I wasn't wearing a uniform or wasn't being looked at as somebody who's an officer and stuff. So it was a place to get out of that whole world.
But why did you choose that, do you think, and not, right? Like there's so many other options. You could like join a golf league or a bowling league, or, right? There's so many other ways that you could have done it.
I got no place else to go. That's a good question. It became habitual in college, I guess, because that's the first time I joined an adult choir. And it was a connection to music. Sometimes it did feel like I was using the church more than I was sort of giving things. I was getting, a connection to music and classical music and stuff like that, and being with musicians. So that fed me, I think.
Just having, because you had been in choirs kind of a lot growing up and all this. This is just a big part of you. And it's true. I mean, I think that is a piece that does keep people connected with church is music in a lot of places. Because it's not easy once you're out of high school or college to join a choir just randomly. There's a couple community choirs, but those tend to have auditions. Whereas oftentimes the church is just like, yeah, we'll take you. And you used the word in there, habitual. And I think that's an interesting piece of it too, of how church, right, for both of you, it's just what your families did growing up and how it gets into your bloodstream then. Or, even Wednesday nights with your mom during Lent. It's like, okay, I'm just going to go with her. This is just what we do. Do you feel like that is a part of what's kept both of you involved? Is that like Sunday just doesn't feel quite right if you didn't go to church? Well, clearly not in college, Stacie, but.
Well, I was going to say, no, I could stay home.
Your parents didn't pressure you on it.
No. Then, yes.
Okay.
There was no ifs, ands, or buts about Stacie going off while I lived at home. My brother is a whole different story. I just meant now as an adult.
Yeah.
Like now, it's like my only morning where I don't have to.
Yeah.
So no, I it's not always a habit for me on Sundays. He is often the reason we get here on a Sunday when I'm like, just have coffee on the.
Yeah, meet the press is on. Come on.
But Scott is much, for those of you who can't see me pointing to him, he is much better about that and about this is what we do on Sunday mornings when sometimes I am like, but do we?
Yeah. Is that your military background, Scott, showing up?
Probably why I got into the military.
Yeah. Why is it? Why it's just habitual? It just feels like what you need to do?
It does feel that way. Yeah. And I need that. It anchors the week. And if I don't, then it felt like, this weekend was weird. It just didn't feel quite right.
Even though, and because we can all admit this too, I feel the same way. But I mean, obviously, as pastors, it becomes such a part of your weekly
Right.
rhythm. Like I don't get to decide to sleep in or not.
Good, right? True.
And so it becomes such a part of the weekly rhythm that then it's just programmed into you. And yet in the same sense, I really have a hard time a lot of articulating to people why it's important beyond that, right? Like I have the same feelings like, oh no, like it's just what you should do. But then when people really ask me about it, it's like, well, yeah, you're right. Like it can be kind of boring sometimes. And I mean, did you ever have to have those conversations when you had your time as a pastor, Stacie, with anyone where they're like, hey, like, why would I go to church? Like, what would you tell them?
Yes, I would have those conversations. What would I tell them? It's funny. I actually have those conversations more
Now?
now than I ever had them as pastor.
Interesting.
Now it's more of people, especially work, or they're surprised if they don't know that that's part of my background.
Yeah.
Unless somebody calls me pastors or somebody says something. So people are surprised. So I'm always like, well, what does that say about my personality that you're that surprised? I was actually a pastor, but anyway, we won't go there. But I get it asked now, and I get it asked now more so. And Nate, you and I have had these conversations from mutual friends more so because of there's a lot of people in my world for whom the church is not a welcoming place.
Right.
In their experience. I'm not saying it isn't, but their perception and their experience, or they've been hurt, or the other sorts of Christians are louder, and that worries them. And then they kind of want to say, how could you be part of that? So I get it asked now. And for me, there's a couple of ways I respond to that here at Bethany and with Pastor Gary, with you, Pastor Nate. But Bethany's different. Come, you're welcome. This is a place to experience it differently.
Yeah.
But I also go back to, I think I said earlier, for me, why do I go? It's because I cannot imagine navigating life without believing in something. And for me, that's God and Jesus. More importantly, that the Holy Spirit's at work in our world today. And then two, in particular, when somebody's had such a tough experience, or when they've been hurt by the church or hurt by a pastor or hurt by a faith-filled person, don't lump us all in. Not everybody is that way. That's not the God I believe in.
Yeah.
The God I believe in loves you, regardless of what you've done, what you've said, who you love, all of those things. But my thing in Denver has always been come and experience. Come and listen. Come and be fed. And if it's not for you, it's not for you, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
But today is my friend's birthday who died 3 years ago in August, and it's like I can't imagine how I would make sense of her dying so young.
Yeah.
Right? If I didn't believe that she is in heaven and she is enjoying some good wine or maybe a beer and she is playing cards or she's golfing, like the idea for me that my faith says there is life after death.
Yeah. A sense of hope.
A sense of hope. I can't, as just because today is Bale's birthday, but it's like many things in this world today, that there are so many things that how bleak it must be if you have nowhere to hope or nowhere to feel that, you're loved and you're included. And I don't know, but in Denver, because this congregation is who it is, and because we have such a community between us of various people, it's come meet our friends, come experience the word as preached by you and Gary. It's a good place.
Yeah.
And I think it's not just the church service, not just worship.
Yeah.
But it's all of the rest of the activities and the opportunities to grow my faith. That to me, that sort of separates Bethany from other places. Because I went to a church and sang in the choir for, a dozen years. But there was a time I was going through divorce and just couldn't face that other congregation.
Yeah.
And would do the same thing, come here very anonymously and be able to, come in and out without being recognized or anything, have to do anything. But then as I discovered more the opportunities for developing my faith and other people who were on this journey that like discovering new things through interesting called Bible study, but it's more like a book club for guys who are just interested in these topics. And just there's so much, it's made my faith much more vibrant being in this place.
With all of the additional
Yeah.
pieces
Yeah.
of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Well, and Scott, what would you say that maybe that's part of your answer to this question? But yeah, when people at work or friends, people outside the church, when they find out that this is part of your practice and they're like, why do you do that? What do you tell them?
I think it's wrapped up in community. There's a lot of people. It's funny how many people I've met here that I knew in my working world as well as other consultants and things.
Oh,
like
no
that.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These guys like from 25, 30 years ago. I was like, hey, come. So that's part of it. But then there's, service opportunities and, all these things that are wrapped up in being a good human.
Yeah.
That you can experience coming to a place like Bethany. And, I feel like there are very few places in the world today where there are truly multi-generational groups.
I agree. I think that's a big piece. Yeah.
You just don't see it. It's like, okay, well, you play softball, so everybody there is a softball player of a certain age group, and that's it. You don't have the grandparents and the little kids, and it's...
Well, and I know that you're a confirmation guide,
Mhm.
and so you work with our confirmation students.
Yeah.
And so, right, like, I'm guessing if it wasn't for that, you wouldn't hang out with a lot of middle schoolers.
That's true.
The rest
I really like being able to, when the kids go up and do different things, like, oh, I know that person.
Yeah.
And otherwise I would never know their names and wouldn't know anything about them.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. I want to come back real quick, Stacie, before we kind of bring this to a close, because one of the things I'm interested about, you talked about camp and how important that was for you. And one of the things I wonder about, just because you brought it up and I want to circle back to it, I feel like a lot of people do have their faith like come alive at camp. And then they're so disappointed that church is nothing like camp.
Because it's the mountaintop experience.
Yeah.
Camp is the mountaintop experience.
So how do you understand that or how did you reconcile that in your mind?
Well, I think so going back to going to camp. So I didn't want to go to Bible camp, and it was Carol Joy Holling in Ashland, Nebraska.
Yep.
Didn't want to go. And my friend Tracy, at one of my friends from church, because I went to a different school, her mom said she had to go. So I would go with her. We go to camp.
Uh-huh.
This, again, if you know me, you know me. But if you don't, you might have figured it out. But it's like, shockingly, I was in heaven. I was meeting. I was doing. I was like on the, so I came alive at camp. Tracy was so homesick the entire week, never left the counselor's side, sobbed, was so thankful it was done. I then never went with a friend again. I went with kids I met at camp who lived across the state.
No way.
And then from that, I got involved in the state youth organization. So for me, you came back to church on Sunday and it's not as fun, but I was involved in youth group, which is fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like if if you do youth group, it can be fun, lock-ins and all sorts of stuff that you're doing at church, but you shouldn't be doing. And then I was involved in the state youth organization. So I went to conventions. I went to the National Youth Gathering twice.
Yeah.
So for me, I did other things besides just Sunday morning.
Sure.
And that was where it continued. And I made connections all across the state. So I would look forward to, we have a meeting. Dad, you have to drive me to Kearney, Nebraska. I have a meeting.
So I can go see my friends.
I can go see my friends, right? And back in those days, which will shock the young listeners, we actually wrote letters to each other, right? To stay in touch and to plan what week you were going back to camp, right?
I had the same experience. Went to camp, got involved in the Synod Youth Organization, the statewide organization, made friends all across the state. You're going to love this. We didn't do letters. There was one friend who had, and I don't know why, he had a calling card, a phone card. Remember those? With minute, but it was like unlimited minutes. And so he just shared it with everyone.
That's awesome.
And we could all call each other long distance using the special 10-digit code. And then you dial the number. It took forever. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. But the good part about camp is it is the mountaintop, right?
Right.
Camp is a blast and it's meaningful and it's fun. And God bless the counselors who are working tirelessly to do it, and day camps. I mean, if you name a city or a town in Minnesota, I'm usually like, yeah, I did a day camp there. Because I do think that's kind of what it takes sometimes to get people of a young age engaged.
Yeah.
And to have a spark lit. When I talk to, and I don't know about you two, if that's your experience, but it's an anomaly to find a pastor who doesn't have camp in their background.
Yeah.
It is an anomaly
Mm-hmm.
because for most young people, and then in college, like that is a really faith formation thing, to be watching young people. I remember a little girl coming to me and she'd found the verse of the, whatever our verse was for that season, and highlighted it, and she could highlight it. She had permission to write in her Bible. And like, it's like, you can't explain the joy that gives you as a 19-year-old or
Yeah.
a 20-year-old to know you've impacted this kid's life and you've planted a seed
Right. And
that you hope they'll come back to, right?
No, I love that. Right. It's such a leadership development moment
Big time.
to be put and entrusted to care for these kids like that. And you're right, when you are leading these young people towards an understanding of the mysteries of the universe in some small way, it's an incredibly privileged, amazing experience to be a part of.
And those are those seeds. Because I think I don't know the statistic, you probably do, how many kids leave after confirmation and then maybe don't come back until they have a baby.
Yeah.
And they come back because I always think that's an interesting one. Like they come back because now they have a baby
Mm-hmm.
and they need a place,
Mm-hmm.
right? And maybe it's MOPS, or maybe it's preschool, or maybe it's a vacation Bible school. But it's like, I look at things like camp, like confirmation, like youth group activity. You're planting seeds.
Yeah.
That's what you got to let kids be kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
And college is also a time where, go explore.
Right. And if you force it too much on anyone, that can often just lead to the complete rebellion of
Right.
like, I'm not going to do what you tell me to do.
And-
My daughter says that to me twice a day.
Have never had a problem with the questioning time either, because I do think you said it, Scott. I do think at some point in time you have to decide, is this my faith
Right.
or is this my parents' faith? Or for me,
Yep.
my parents and my grandparents and my great-grandparents, right? Like,
Right.
So, but that questioning, whether you're in college and you're meeting somebody who might be Muslim or Buddhist or Jewish, or whether you're taking a class somewhere and like, it's okay. You got to do that.
Mhm.
And I think, again, I hope we've planted those seeds so that they have something to come back to.
Why do you hope that they come back to it, though?
The reason I hope they come back to it is because, again, I think many of us need to find meaning beyond ourselves.
Yeah.
And
That's something bigger that you
something
keep coming back to.
Bigger, something that also helps connect, something that you use the word hope.
Yeah.
I think so for me, I hope people come back, because I work in the funeral industry, and I just think,
Yeah.
how horrific, isolating, lonely, how must that feel
Yeah. How difficult is that?
to do that
Right.
when you don't have an understanding or a belief in what I
Right.
do, life after death, and that comes from my faith. So for me, I hope people come back to it, because I think the world is hard enough.
Yeah.
Relationships are hard. Politics is hard.
Yeah.
Being a kid is hard. All of that stuff. Knowing that there is something beyond yourself, and that you can access that through prayer or through scripture or through Sunday morning.
Through music.
Yeah,
Mhm.
through music.
Yeah.
Through men's group. Scott's very involved in the men's group. Like, just again, and that's my hope. That's why I hope that.
No, thanks for that.
I almost feel like the mystics of Christianity
Yeah.
will be the ones to save church.
Oh.
Because I feel like in popular culture, when I see like movies and stuff like that, I look at like the Marvel universe and the guys who had the one of the Infinity Stones. They were all like Buddhist, kind of like, and what's his name? Cumberbatch was there, and those stones, and they're all these
Keep going.
chants and the symbols and
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like that. And it's like in movies and TV, it's more popular to have sort of Buddhist leanings than Christian leanings, and to find like inner peace and stuff like that. You don't see somebody going to a Christian church. It's sort of interesting to me that
Yeah.
even though that's the thing that unites almost all religions, is that mysticism, whether it's the Sufis in Islam, or there's a branch of Judaism that's more mystical, and like all of that sort of ties to this universal belief in this God. And I feel like that's, if people knew that the Christian church isn't there to blame you and to place guilt on you, but it's this place to discover, like you said, sort of the secrets of the universe, and to grow in that, and that we are all united with this love, this universal love from God. That's like, that pulls people together. And it's still treated, I feel like church in the media is still treated sort of like this powerful, monolithic, glowering face that sort of, that's not what we experience here at church.
And as a pastor, Stacie, you can chime in on this too. I am always so disappointed whenever I see a pastor figure in a TV show or a movie. I'm so excited, and then so disappointed. Like, oh my gosh, like what an idiot. Right? That's always the way that it plays out. I was like, oh gosh. And there's probably elements of truth to that too, in the way that the clergy get portrayed all the time in popular media. But thanks for that. I want to draw it to a close, and you knew this question was coming, and you both have kind of answered it in your own ways throughout, but I'm going to ask you to be succinct and give us kind of a summary statement as I ask you, why are you still here? Whoever wants to go first. Why is church still part of your life, given everything else that happens, that's going on, that you could be doing? Why are you still here?
I find connection with others. I find outlets for service, and I find an ability to grow in my understanding and my just this faith journey on that path.
Thanks, Scott. Stacie?
Community. I would just say community. That it is, I keep going because it's a place that I'm known, I'm seen, I'm heard, and I'm loved. And there are some of my favorite people are there. So community.
Thanks. Thank you both for agreeing to do this, and for being my friend, and for all the conversation and wise insight. Stacie, thanks for being a mentor to my daughter. You were, I gave Scott credit for confirmation.
Highlight of my year. She's one of my favorite people. It was my honor.
She's one of my favorite people too.
Yeah, she's pretty cool.
And you, dear listeners, thank you for listening. Share this conversation with family and friends. And as always, stay in peace. Thank you for listening to the Together for Good podcast. If you'd like more resources for your walk of faith, please visit our website, bethany-denver.org, or download our mobile app by searching Bethany Connect in your phone's app store.